There are big threatening enemies out on the planets of Warhammer 40,000, things that will crush our uprising as our glorious workers await the arrival of the Star Gods. And we cannot let them. Big things will be scary in 11th edition. There's potential that more units will have 2 characters, a leader and a support character, so we get these big Death Star blocks, and titanic things get plunging fire if they're close to us, so they can hit us easier. We need to deal with them. And this is how the Genestealer Cult do it. The Necrons provide good examples of these big threats that we have to deal with. There are the Catan. A Transcendent Catan is toughness 11, 16 wounds, a 3+ save, a 4+ invulnerable save, a 5+ feel no pain, and -1 to damage. A Monolith is toughness 13 with a 2+ save and 22 wounds. Both of these can heal with reanimation protocols to get D3 wounds back. But there's also an Overlord with Lichguard. The Lichguard at toughness 5 have 2 wounds each, a 3+ save. You subtract 1 from the wound roll if your strength is higher than their toughness. They have a 4+ invulnerable save with their dispersion shields. The Overlord can use a Resurrection Orb to return D6 wounds rather than D3. And that's in addition to using reanimation protocols in the same game turn. With the Netherrealm Casket enhancement, the unit has stealth, so it's -1 to hit. And in that Awakened Dynasty detachment, if the Overlord's taken down, there's the protocol of the Eternal Revenant so they can get back up. It's a lot. These are units that are good at enduring damage and able to dish it out again. And when you return a character to life, they rejoin their unit. This is at least a 10th edition rule. I see no reason why they would change it to not be that way in 11th edition. If you've been playing that wrong the whole edition, I'm sorry. The Necron Lord returns to the unit. It's the same for Celestine or the Genestealer Cult Abominant. Like the video since you learnt new information or had existing information confirmed. So I have a lot of suggestions for how you can bring them down. More than one of these suggestions has to be applied at once. You can't use one, realize it didn't bring down a knight by itself, and then complain to your pillow about lies on the internet. I'm telling you that there are many tools that you can apply, but you need to apply them multiple times to get the result. You can't knock on a nail with one swing, it's tappa tappa tappa. The first way is Mortal Wounds. Mortal Wounds do not care about -1 to your wound. They do not care about -1 to your hit roll. They're not affected by -1 damage or half damage because Mortal Wounds are applied one at a time. The Jackal Bikers cause a lot of Mortal Wounds. They have Demolition Run. I would say have 2 units of 5. Each one does their own Demolition Run. When they end a normal move, an advanced move, or a fallback move within 6 inches of the enemy, roll a dice for each Atalan Jackal model in the unit. That includes the Wolf Quad. They have the Atalan Jackals keyword. It's Jackals plural. But it wouldn't apply to any Jackal Alphas that joined the unit. For every 4+, the enemy takes a mortal wound. It's to a maximum of 6, which is why you use it on a squad of 5 rather than a squad of 10. And you do 2 squads of 5, so you could potentially get 10, whereas if you had 1 squad of 10, the maximum would be 6. Each squad can also have a mining laser. It hits on a 4+, it has good strength at strength 12, AP -3, and D6 +1 damage. And then they have grenades. Almost all of our units have grenades. Especially the Reductus Saboteur, who can throw grenades for free. Only one, so if you have multiple Reductus Saboteurs, you'd have to have one safe, use one for fighting. If she dies, rotate in the other one. Her planted explosives mean that enemies that move near to her on a 2+ will take a lot of mortal wounds, D3 +3. And she has a demolition charge. It hits on a 3+. That can be boosted in the final day or the Brood Brothers Auxilia to hit on a 2+. Strength 9, AP -2, 2 damage. And with Blast, it's pretty good at taking out those Lichguard units. Straight onto the invulnerable save, every failed save kills one of them. You can be more direct. Have an Abominant. Big hammer, ladies, big hammer. It's like 4 shots from a las cannon hitting on a 3+ or a 2+ in final day. It hits tanks especially well. It's also a good way to get rid of characters. Assassinate characters, because as a character, she can use the Epic Challenge stratagem. Characters do not like even one of those hammer hits getting through. While it wouldn't work just the one time against an Overlord, you would have to do it 2 times. But against anyone that cannot resurrect, like Battle Sisters in Hallowed Martyrs or the Necrons in Awakened Dynasty, that can rip the strongest part out of a unit. The characters. Kill a Hospitaller. Then there's no more Feel No Pain, no more resurrection. Any enhancements they have disappear. There are many vehicles we can use to get rid of the enemy. A Goliath Rock Grinder has a Demolition Cache, hits on a 5, so it's not super reliable. You can have a Heavy Mining Laser. That has the high strength 12 and d6 plus 1 damage. The Drill Dozer is strength 10, AP minus 2, 2 damage. If you can hit an enemy tank that has a strength a bit less than 10 or at 10, you can do a lot of wounds to it, or you use that to grind over heavy infantry. To cause mortal wounds, it's a tank. It's got a high toughness. And while in 11th edition, Tank Shock, its equivalent, is gonna cause mortal wounds back to you, potentially, you will do more mortal wounds to the enemy. Rock Grinders are disposable even if you can't get them back through Cult Ambush. The enemy's vehicle or monster or 300-point god creature is more expensive and will not like that many mortal wounds. Regular Goliath trucks can do the same. They can perform Tank Shock. They have an autocannon. They can throw a demolition charge with their demolition cache. That doesn't run out. But their best ability is to have a unit disembark, then that unit gets full rerolls to wound if they shoot the same thing that the truck shot at. The problem is it's not a lot of range attacks from 10 models, you can't do that much. Hand Flamer Acolytes with demo charges are an option. It's okay armor penetration, okay number of shots. The truck gets them to the fight safely and close enough to use the demo charges, but otherwise they already reroll all wound rolls if the enemy's on an objective. But with enough Hand Flamers and some increased armor penetration, you can chip away a lot of wounds from enemy vehicles. Tag Team Ridge Runners. Ridge Runners are what increases our armor penetration. Crossfire does that. You can chain one unit of Ridge Runners with like a mortar into another unit of 2 with heavy mining lasers. Also, that massive mining laser hits on a 3+ with a spotter, or a 2+ in Final Day and Brood Brothers Auxilia. This is because the spotter changes your ballistic skill characteristic to a 3+. It's not modifying your ballistic skill. It's changing it to something new. And then Final Day and Brood Brothers Auxilia change the hit roll. So if you rolled a 2, you then add 1 to that dice roll, it becomes a 3, which is a success. Big lasers can do big damage. Or it doesn't have to be about damage. Tactics with the Genestealer Cult are not necessarily about causing damage to the enemy. Forget the specialized characters and the vehicles. Have lots of neophytes. Sit on an objective. Maybe with an icon ward, and no matter how many bullets the enemy sends at you, they can't fit their models onto the objective. If they can, then we have more objective control. You can't kill all of us because there's a 5+ Feel No Pain, and as long as we control the objective, D3+3 models come back each turn. We have our own regeneration. You win the game by controlling the objectives. If you can see the profile of the enemy, if they're really good at killing infantry, charge them with a truck. That's something they're going to have to fall back from. Otherwise, they're not going to hurt it. If they have a super strike profile but terrible sweep, charge them with neophytes. You know their attack number and whether they have sustained hits or not and cleave or not. Figure out if they can kill your neophyte unit. If they can't, if they can kill less than half of it, tie them up. Neophyte shooting isn't necessarily all that. Block the enemy. If that crazy powerful orc vehicle can't fly, put 5 pure strains in its way. It kills them, but isn't much closer to the objective. Put 5 acolytes in its way next. It'll charge and kill them and still not be on the objective. This expensive model isn't doing much of value to your opponent. It's barely bothering us. Maybe it can get a couple of victory points from killing some of our guys, but we have resurgence points to bring them back. And the problem is that if the enemy sufficiently supports their monsters and vehicles and uses another unit to shoot the blocking unit, it doesn't work. So we need another solution for the early game. Ignore the biggest enemies and hope they leave you alone. Target priority. If you cannot wipe out the big things, kill the infantry in the enemy army that you can hurt, that will die, the things that score points for their opponent. That Land Raider is not going to forego shooting to complete an action unless we make it by killing all the units in the enemy army that were gonna complete actions. An Imperial Knight can break through to our objective and start burning it in the Scorched Earth mission or something similar in 11th edition, But if we have killed the enemy armigers and Imperial Agent support infantry, we are burning their home objective at the same time, and we control all of No Man's Land. Ignore what you can't kill all the other small units, then your opponent can't score their secondary missions. Are they going to have a big block on their home objective doing nothing? Take their home or force them to have a useless super unit. Win on victory points. So kill from the bottom up. The opposite way to how the doctrine says you should fight Tyranids by shooting the big ones. We get the infantry, then the light vehicles like trucks and rhinos, and ignore the big enemies. Unless they have 1 million anti-infantry shots. Then you use the tactics in this video to take them out. But once their infantry is gone, you can block them. That Leman Russ Vanquisher with multi-melters and las cannon, it can kill 6 neophytes if everything hits and wounds. We can regenerate that many with a cult icon. We always win in the end. Now there are detachment-specific ways to take on these big creatures. In the Host of Ascension, there is tunnel crawlers. That gets your demo chargers right in range from deep strike. Compared to jumping out of a truck, this way you get sustained hits and ignore cover. If the enemy is getting the benefit of cover, which in 11th edition is -1 ballistic skill, we ignore that. We will at least be hitting on a 5+. 20 neophytes is good in the Host of Ascension. Give them a Benefactus for lethal hits, and Assassination Edict to have +1 to hit against character units. The big knights are characters, and this is good against different kinds of tough enemy. Elite infantry that have character leaders. Lich Guard with an Overlord, you get +1 to hit. Ultramarine Victrix Guard. Deathwatch Marines with a Chaplain or a Watchmaster or any other character. And if you're not sure how much damage you can cause, use apps like Adept Roll. That's good for calculating all of the combos mentioned in this video. Then you can figure out how +1 to hit will help you, how having sustained hits and lethal hits, but triggering on a 5+, is that enough to take out the bodyguard and the character. Adept Roll can calculate that for you. And its newer version lets you compare how much damage you do with one combo compared to another against the same enemy unit. It's a useful app. The link to download is in the description, and it's there as a pinned comment. It's perfect for calculating things at a list building step. Then you'll know if you're doing enough damage against a Catan. It's never enough damage against Catan. But the Host of Ascension has weight of fire from neophytes with lethal hits and sustained hits, and those are triggered on a 5+. You get sustained hits from the detachment rule and ignore cover, and lethal hits with a chink in our armor or the Benefactus. The Benefactus has its own las cannon brain. Or you can have lethal hits on a 5+ in combat with metamorphs and a Biophagus. There's your lethal hits. If you do it on a turn you came from reserve, sustained hits as well. Sometimes what you need against these enemies is a load of shots. 20 guardsmen plus platoon commander plus a feel no pain of some sort is a lot of bodies. Pink horrors have the ability to turn into blue horrors and then brimstone horrors, and with their invulnerable save, weight of fire is how you get through these tough units. The new character bodyguards like Masters of the Maelstrom, they have a lot of wounds for their price. Weight of attacks is important. And if the enemies charge you, they're big, tough, super important special units with really high armor saves and an invulnerable save, a deadly snare gets through that toughness and armor to cause more mortal wounds. Probably. It's dice roll dependent. In the Biosanctic broodsurge, there is a specific stratagem to have +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles, especially with aberrants and an abominant. It can work on pure strain Genestealers as well. Wounding on a 6, wounding on a 5, AP -2, good armor penetration. If you can boost that with a Ridge Runner, it's great for getting through tough tanks like a Vindicator that doesn't have an invulnerable save. And we have weight of attacks in this detachment, because if your pure strains or your aberrants succeed at a charge, that's extra attacks. 10 acolytes with auto pistols. They can still cut down monsters with enough buffs, even though their weapons are anti-vehicle. Have a Biophagus, of course, in the Biosanctic broodsurge. Then your 6 mining tools get 18 attacks, extra attack from the detachment rule. You're hitting on 3s, you have lethal hits. You could have +1 to wound against monsters. Now most vehicles you'll be wounding on a 5, so the +1 isn't necessary because you have anti-vehicle 4+, but you have a way to take down monsters with this unit as well. Lethal hits is important. In the Xenocreed Congregation, very similar thing. 10 acolytes with auto pistols, have a Biophagus. That unit then gets to reroll advance and charge rolls because they have a character with them. Use Frenzied Devotion, and 6 mining tools are 18 attacks, hitting on 2s with lethal hits. The lethal hits are necessary to get past the high toughness of these big beasties. But once you do, these mining tools have AP -2 and damage 3. That's enough to push the enemy onto their invulnerable save, and every failed save is quite a bit of damage. If the enemy is a character like a Catan or an Imperial Knight, Denunciator of Tyrants gives you +1 to hit and wound against characters. That's a lot of shots from 20 neophytes, or 10 frenzied acolytes, but they have to be led by an icon ward. You can't put the enhancement on a Benefactus or a Biophagus. I mean, inconveniencing these big blocks is not a bad idea. Genestealer Cult Magus. I didn't mention them, but they are a good Xenocreed character. -1 to hit can upset them, as it is one unit that will be firing either a lot of shots or some good shots, and every missed shot is potentially another one of your cultists surviving. In the final day, the Detachment Rule Catalyst can give you +1 to hit, and you've got full rerolls to wound as an option with acolytes with their damage 3 mining tools. Anti-vehicle 4+, full rerolls to wound, yeah. You could do it with the Pure Strains and the Patriarch, who have loads of attacks and devastating wounds. Full rerolls on that. Anything that isn't a 6 to wound, you re-roll. And in the final day, you have access to hyper-adapted Raveners. They have anti-monster 5+, they have anti-vehicle 5+, and twin linked, so you re-roll the wound rolls. They can support acolytes with mining tools, or an Abominant who is now hitting on a 2+ because the enemy is within 6 inches of a Tyranid unit. In the Brood Brothers Auxilia, oh, the terrible, terrible Brood Brothers Auxilia, the enemy has a Shadow Sword. We have a Shadow Sword. Use Tank Shock. That's an average of 4 mortal wounds with a Shadow Sword or a Leman Russ. There are no orders, so super heavies that usually don't bother with orders are suited to our use. The Leman Russ Vanquisher has a good anti-tank gun, but not a great hit chance for that one-shot cannon. The Leman Russ Battle Tank has a lot of shots, good strength, and rerolls to hit against enemies that are on objectives we don't control. Importantly, this is on all weapons. The Battle Cannon, the Las Cannon, the Multi-Melters, the Hunt-to-Killer Missile, and even the tracks in combat. To go with the Reductus Saboteur, we have even more mortal wounds from Krieg Engineers. They're a surprisingly cheap unit, and they can do a lot of mortal wounds. Having 20 unkillable neophytes is even better in the Brood Brothers Auxilia because of the Hero Returned. You can have objective control 3 neophytes with an icon ward. If the enemy doesn't have enough attacks for 20 neophytes with a 5+ Feel No Pain, and a 6+ invulnerable and the benefit of cover as we use Go to Ground, and we can resurrect with the cult icon of the unit. Having objective control 3 means that enemies cannot push you off with battle line troops or big tanks. You score points, you win the game. The enemy doesn't score points, they can't win the game. And in the Outlander Claw, loads of mortal wounds from lots of bikes. You've got the demo run, the grenade stratagem. This chipping away won't work so well against armies like Necrons with regeneration unless you continually hammer one unit. It's only 1 grenade per phase, but each bike unit can do a demo run. Then tie the enemy up. There is more endurance in this detachment. Charge a truck into the enemy. If the enemy has 10, strength 18, damage 2 attacks, hitting and wounding on a 2+ with AP -4, use the -1 damage stratagem. If they fail a single hit or wound, the truck lives, and the enemy's super murder unit is not going to do anything in the coming turn except kill that 85-point civilian vehicle. No moving, no charging, no killing something else. It can fall back, but without fallback and charge, it can't really do anything. And in the Outlander Claw, the truck probably has higher objective control than the enemy unit, because of the rapid takeover detachment rule. There are tips and tactics for every detachment. January's playlist is complete. You can learn all of the tactics we have as you enter 11th edition. I expect the majority of what I've said to be valid, and there'll be updates once we know what our detachments are, what the actual rules of 11th edition are, and then, praise to the cult, you can take down your enemies and have a great day of 40k.